Was Albert Einstein a good man? On March 10, 2024, the 95th Academy Awards ceremony officially took place. As expected, the film Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, brilliantly won 7 Oscar statuettes in major categories. The movie tells the biography of Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. But wait, isn't it Einstein? Many people might be shocked at this point, realizing they've been mistaken all along. Indeed, Albert Einstein was not actually the father of the atomic bomb as many people believe, but it's true that without the foundations laid by this great scientist of humanity, not only the atomic bomb but many other things with significant impacts on life would likely not have come into existence, and the world would be very different from what it is today. On the other hand, Albert Einstein also had dark sides that very few people know about. So who exactly was Einstein? And what did he do to have such a profound influence? How extraordinary was Einstein's life? From the moment he was born, Einstein proved to be an unusual child. It is said that when he came into the world, Einstein was a boy with a head larger than average, causing difficulties for his mother during childbirth. The doctors struggled greatly to safely deliver him from his mother's body. Not only did he have an unusually large head, but Einstein's appearance at birth was also not pleasing to the eye. Doctors and nurses believed that as he grew up, he would suffer from developmental delays. However, reality proved them completely wrong. Despite some challenges with speech and a slight tendency toward autism, young Einstein excelled in natural science subjects at school. Beyond excelling in class, Einstein also had talent and passion for music. From the age of 5, he could play music, and his love for music became even more apparent when he turned 13. He often participated in chamber music performances with some artists and played for a few of his friends. As he grew older, Einstein's family moved to Italy, while he had to stay in Munich to continue his education. His father intended for him to study electrical engineering, but Einstein had little fondness for the education board there. The reason was that he found their teaching methods too dogmatic and outdated, while Einstein was a curious person, often asking questions on his own and stepping beyond the boundaries of traditional knowledge. Later, Einstein wrote that human creativity would be lost if the rote memorization method of teaching and learning continued. In September 1896, Einstein officially graduated from high school in Switzerland with high scores in many subjects, especially perfect scores in math and physics. At the age of 17, he was admitted to the physics and mathematics teacher training program at ETH Zurich. In the same year, Mileva Merrick, Einstein's future wife, also enrolled at ETH Zurich to study math and physics education. Notably, she was the only young woman among the 6 students in the class. Their friendship would later develop into a romantic relationship, bringing many consequences to both of their lives, but we'll discuss Einstein's love life later. In 1900, Einstein graduated with a bachelor's degree from ETH Zurich. From here, his path in scientific research was officially opened. After graduating from university, Einstein spent about 2 difficult years trying to find a teaching position to secure a stable income. Finally, thanks to connections with the director of the patent office, the father of one of his close friends helped him secure a job as an examiner at the Swiss Federal Patent Office. During his time there, he primarily evaluated inventions related to electronic devices. In 1903, he became a permanent employee of the office. It can be said that the work during this period had a significant influence on his later scientific theories. Based on the experience accumulated during this time, Einstein, along with friends he met in Bern, established a weekly discussion club on science and philosophy, which he jokingly called the Olympia Academy. They discussed the works of famous philosophers and scientists. Many of the topics covered there had a relatively significant impact on Einstein's later career. A great scientist. Throughout his scientific career, Einstein published hundreds of books and articles. On December 10, 2014, Universities and archives released Einstein's papers, including over 30,000 unique documents. In addition to his solo work, he also collaborated with other scientists on supplementary projects, including Bose-Einstein statistics, the Einstein refrigerator, and other projects. With Einstein's contributions, the world's natural sciences were significantly elevated. He opened up a new world with concepts, theories, and research methods, thereby creating remarkable advancements in fields such as physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, and materials science. With his inventions, such as the theory of relativity, the formula expressing the relationship between mass and energy, E equals mc2, the quantum theory of light, and many others, Einstein opened a new door for science, propelling it forward and developing it significantly. On April 30, 1905, Einstein completed his doctoral dissertation under the guidance of Professor of Experimental Physics Alfred Kleiner. His dissertation was titled, A New Determination of Molecular Dimensions. He was then awarded a Ph.D. by the University of Zurich on January 15, 1906. In the same year, he published 4 groundbreaking papers on the photoelectric effect, the quantum theory of light, Brownian motion, special relativity, and the equivalence of mass and energy, the formula E equals mc2, which brought him to the attention of the global academic community. Today, scientists refer to these 4 papers, along with his earlier doctoral dissertation, as Einstein's 5 miracles. The most notable among them is the paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, in which he first proposed the theory of special relativity, which he later expanded and perfected with the theory of general relativity in 1915. This theory of Einstein's changed humanity's perception of space, time, matter, and energy. Toward the end of the 19th century, scientists believed that space was filled with a substance called ether, and light consisted of waves traveling through this ether. However, subsequent experiments proved that the speed of light does not change depending on the direction or angle observed from Earth. With his genius, Einstein realized the reason for this phenomenon. Space and time are not flat, but are curved due to the presence of matter. To clarify this phenomenon, he discovered equations describing the curvature of space and time, and proved that gravity is a derivative of this curvature. Thus, the establishment of the theory of relativity completely changed our understanding of space and time. This was a groundbreaking discovery, offering a new approach to physics and paving the way for a series of other inventions, such as models of the universe, telecommunications, computers, and many other fields. Next, Einstein's formula E equals mc2 helped us better understand the relationship between matter and energy, making significant contributions to the development of nuclear energy and its applications. It can be said that Einstein laid the first foundation for the field of atomic energy. Its applications, such as nuclear reactors and atomic bombs, owe a great deal to his contributions. Regarding Brownian motion, this phenomenon had been discovered long before, in 1827, when British botanist Robert Brown observed the spontaneous random motion of pollen grains in water. However, it only became widely known after Albert Einstein's 1905 study on its quantitative properties. From a seemingly chaotic and incomprehensible type of motion, Einstein, along with other scientists, showed that it was a regulated chaos, helping to clarify the laws of molecular motion in space and bringing many significant applications to physics later on. Finally, Einstein's quantum theory of light explained many previously puzzling optical phenomena and opened a new door in this field. It was the first breakthrough in the development of quantum theory and contributed greatly to modern industry, but it also raised many big questions for science. Thus, it can be said that with his inventions, Einstein changed humanity's view of the universe, opened a series of new doors for science and technology, and made immense contributions to the development of global science. Einstein became a symbol of creativity. This had a profound impact on industry and human life. In 1908, just 5 years after officially entering the scientific world, Einstein achieved something unimaginable, earning admiration from all other scientists. The academic community at the time regarded him as a leading scientist. The University of Bern invited him to become a lecturer at the school. In the following years, he resigned from the patent office and his lecturing position to take on the role of Privatdozent, a special academic title in Germany for physics, at the University of Zurich. He became a full professor at Karl University, now Charles University in Prague, in 1911. In 1914, he returned to Germany after being appointed director of the Kaiser Institute for Physics from 1914 to 1932, and a professor at Humboldt University in Berlin, with a special contract clause allowing him freedom from teaching obligations. He became a member of the Prussian Academy of Sciences. In 1916, Einstein was appointed president of the German Physical Society from 1916 to 1918. Since the theory of special relativity still had much potential for development, and many questions remained unanswered, Einstein decided to further develop this theory in the future. In 1911, based on reasoning he had developed since 1907 about the need to expand special relativity, he discovered the phenomenon of gravitational redshift and estimated that light rays emitted from distant stars would be deflected by the sun's gravitational field. This was the core of a theory even greater than special relativity, the theory of general relativity. At the end of 1915, he published the theory of general relativity to the academic community. At this point, the theory began to take a form similar to its modern version. Einstein's predictions were later confirmed by a British expedition led by Arthur Eddington during a solar eclipse observation on May 29, 1919, although the estimated value was only half of the accurate figure. Nevertheless, this was still a significant milestone, showing the correct direction of his work. International newspapers quickly reported the event, and Einstein suddenly became famous worldwide, even among those with no scientific knowledge. A man devoted to humanity. Despite being busy with work, Einstein still had many concerns about political ideologies around the world. It can be said that his contributions to world peace were no less significant than his contributions to natural science. First, Einstein was a person who always clearly expressed his opposition to war. In February 1933, while on a visiting lecture in the United States, Einstein decided not to return to Germany because the Nazi Party, a belligerent faction, had come to power. He traveled to Belgium by ship in late March. During the journey, he learned that his house and sailboat in Berlin had been confiscated by Nazi Party members. Upon arriving in Antwerp, Belgium, on March 28, he expressed his opposition by going to the German consulate to renounce his citizenship. Thus, Einstein made it clear that he wanted no involvement with a dictatorial, warlike nation like that. Afterward, Einstein temporarily resided in Belgium for a month before moving to England. During this time, he and many other Jewish intellectuals were ostracized from German society. The research that had once made him famous now became targets for mockery and attack by the Nazi Party. In a letter to his friend, physicist Max Born, who had also left Germany to live in England, Einstein bitterly wrote, "I must admit that the brutality and cowardice came as a complete surprise." After 6 months of living and researching in England, in October 1933, Einstein returned to the United States, which he considered the most suitable place for his lifestyle. In 1935, he officially applied for U.S. citizenship, which was approved in 1940. Speaking of American culture, he highly valued the country's meritocracy and democracy. Einstein wrote, "The novelty that comes to this country is the democratic spirit among the people. No one bows down to another person or class. American youth are fortunate not to have to deal with troubles from outdated traditions." However, while he viewed war as a disease and called for opposition to it, Einstein was also ready to support just wars. In 1933, after Hitler became Germany's supreme leader, he urgently called on Western countries to prepare to counter potential Nazi aggression in the future. Second, Einstein advocated for equality. While he loved the United States, as a Jew who was being oppressed in Germany, he also deeply despised the racial discrimination occurring in American society. He continuously participated in movements against racial discrimination in the U.S. and consistently expressed pride in being Jewish. Throughout his activism, Einstein was a member of several civil rights groups, including the Princeton Conference of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. When W.E.B. Du Bois was accused of being a communist spy, Einstein volunteered to testify as a character witness, and the accusation was dismissed shortly thereafter. Einstein's friendship with activist Paul Robeson also lasted for 20 years. Both served as co-chairs of the American Crusade to end lynching. Due to these active political and social activities, he was once invited by Prime Minister Ben-Gurion to become the President of Israel during the country's founding period. However, foreseeing the suffering that would befall the Palestinian people, he declined. Or, in another letter in 1946 to Maurice Duné, he emphasized, "I support the development of Palestine as a homeland for the Jewish people, but not as a separate state." Despite his love for peace and advocacy for nationalism, Einstein made a decision that he regretted until his dying day: the atomic bomb. "I don't know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but I know what World War IV will be fought with: sticks and stones." The results are well known to all of us. After World War II, as tensions between former Allied nations escalated, many countries possessed nuclear weapons, and the risk of a nuclear war loomed near. Recognizing this danger, Einstein, along with two other scientists, Albert Schweitzer and Bertrand Russell, actively campaigned to stop nuclear testing and bombs in the future. In 1954, a year before his death, Einstein told his close friend Linus Pauling, "I made one of the greatest mistakes of my life when I signed the letter to President Roosevelt recommending the development of atomic bombs, with some justification that it would be very dangerous if the Germans got it first." In 1925, he criticized the Bolsheviks for not having a well-managed government system and called their rule a reign of terror and a tragedy in human history. Later, he adopted a more moderate stance, criticizing their methods but praising their results. This was reflected in his 1929 comment about Vladimir Lenin. "In Lenin, I honor a man who sacrificed his entire self, devoting all his energy to achieving a just society. I do not find his methods appropriate. However, one thing is certain: people like him are the guardians and renewers of humanity's conscience." Einstein also had a deep impression of Mahatma Gandhi, with whom he corresponded extensively. He described Gandhi as a role model for future generations. The dark corners of Albert Einstein's life. At this point, you might think Einstein was a perfect person, an ideal role model, right? Unfortunately, no one is perfect. Do you remember the classmate Mileva Merrick we mentioned earlier? After developing a romantic relationship, Merrick became pregnant. Since Einstein was not ready to marry right away, he allowed her to return to her parents' home in Novi Sad, Serbia, to give birth in secret. In late January 1902, Merrick gave birth to their first daughter, named Liesel, who lived only until the age of 1 before passing away. The cause of death was never publicly disclosed, but it is highly likely to have been scarlet fever. Einstein officially married Mileva Merrick in 1903 and had their first son the following year. Merrick gradually stepped back to take on the role of a homemaker, even giving up her pursuit of a degree at ETH Zurich to support her husband. However, according to the Scientific American, it is highly likely that Merrick helped Einstein significantly in developing his projects, including the theory of relativity. There are many details supporting this hypothesis. Merrick was also an outstanding physicist, and Einstein often used the pronoun we instead of I in letters mentioning his work. Their second son, Edward Einstein, was born in Zurich in July 1910. One might think he would have a happy family, but that was until he had an affair with his cousin, Elsa Lowenthal. Feeling no longer interested in his first marriage, Einstein developed a relationship with Elsa, despite still being married to Marek. Einstein openly carried on his relationship with Elsa. However, Marek discovered it and demanded that Einstein stay for the sake of the family. He did so, but with certain conditions, including that Marek must prepare 3 meals a day, remain silent when requested, leave when ordered, and not interfere with his other personal relationships. In 1914, Einstein moved to Berlin to be closer to his mistress. Initially, Marek and their sons moved in with him, but it didn't take long for Marek to lose patience and return to Zurich with the boys. Afterward, he divorced his first wife to fully devote himself to his mistress, despite already having 3 children together. On February 14, 1919, Marek and Einstein finally divorced after living apart for 5 years. Einstein then married his cousin on June 2 of the same year. The two had no children together, and Albert treated Elsa's 2 daughters from her previous marriage as his own, giving them his surname, Ilse Einstein, and Margit Einstein. However, his sons with Marek did not receive the same treatment. He made it clear that his only responsibility was to send child support for the 2 boys, one living with his ex-wife, and the other in a mental institution. The initial plan was that if Einstein won the Nobel Prize, all the prize money would be placed in a trust fund. Marek could only access the interest, but absolutely not the principal. In 1935, Elsa Einstein was diagnosed with heart and kidney-related diseases. She passed away in December 1936. His ex-wife, Marek, never returned to Einstein and passed away 12 years later. And so, for the last 7 years of his life, Einstein lived alone in solitude. As known, Albert Einstein married twice in his life, but had only 3 biological children with his first wife. Lieserl Marek, born 1902, died 1903. Hans Albert Einstein, born 1904, died 1973. And Eduard Einstein, born 1910, died 1965. Both Einstein and Marek were exceptionally intelligent and talented, so he placed very high expectations on his children. When they did not meet his expectations, he considered them failures. To put it bluntly, besides being unfaithful, Einstein was also somewhat authoritarian and harsh. He treated his children according to strict standards, and above all, they had to satisfy him. His first child is believed to have been given up for adoption at a very young age. The reason she was given away was because she was born blind, which was considered a failure in Einstein's eyes. Some others believe this child died of smallpox. His youngest child, Eduard, was no better off, suffering from mental illness from birth. Only Hans Albert, the second son, lived a healthy and normal life. It can be said that this was the only child who passed muster in Einstein's eyes. However, everything fell apart when Hans enrolled at the Zurich Polytechnic Institute, choosing to study civil engineering, going against his father's expectations. Despite being among the top students of the school, Hans's choice of field was still called a disgusting idea by Albert Einstein. For this reason, over a long period, father and son Albert Einstein constantly clashed over views on life and career. The story didn't end there. At the age of 23, Hans Albert married his first wife. This choice of partner was once again fiercely opposed by Einstein, as the woman was not only 9 years older than Hans, but also suffered from congenital dwarfism, already prejudiced against his failed child. Einstein declared that he was extremely concerned that the bad genes of the couple would harm future generations of the family. If they don't have children, then I can rest in peace. Yes, you read that right. These are the exact words Einstein wrote in a letter. It's hard to believe that a cheerful, life-loving scientist like Einstein could write such pessimistic and harsh words about the only son who had once met his standards. Much later, Hans and Einstein are said to have gradually reconciled their relationship, as Hans repeatedly sought his father's advice on career and life. Although they managed to mend some of their differences, Einstein still often criticized the only son he could still face, berating him for choosing a career path different from the one he had envisioned. In an interview with the media, Hans Albert once painfully admitted, "Perhaps I am the only project my father ever gave up on." The strange journey of Einstein's brain. Einstein, after a life full of bitterness and sweetness, on April 18, 1955, the great scientist Albert Einstein took his final breath at the age of 76 at Princeton Hospital, New Jersey, USA. According to his wishes, the Einstein family held a completely private funeral, attended only by a single photographer, Ralph Morse, from Life magazine. The final photos of Einstein were also kept secret. 60 years later, Life magazine had the opportunity to publish some of the images Morse took on the day this scientific genius was laid to rest. After Einstein's death, Dr. Thomas Harvey opened his skull, injected preservatives into the brain's arteries, and placed it in a preservation solution, keeping what was considered the most intelligent brain in history for scientific research. This action led to Harvey being sacked from the hospital. From then on, the brain of the late genius Einstein always traveled with Harvey until 2005, when Harvey handed over this precious specimen to Princeton Hospital. Where did Einstein's intelligence come from? What made the brain of this genius different from that of an ordinary person? To this day, the mystery of this great scientist's intellect remains unsolved. Regardless, one thing no one can deny is that Albert Einstein completely changed the world. On April 17, 1955, Albert Einstein suffered internal bleeding due to a ruptured aortic aneurysm, which had previously been operated on by Dr. Rudolf Nissen in 1948. In the eulogy at his funeral, nuclear physicist Robert Oppenheimer summarized, "With Einstein, there was almost no complexity or mundanity in his nature. In him, there was always an extraordinary purity, sometimes childlike, sometimes profound and stubborn." Later, in the introduction to the book Subtle is the Lord, physicist and science historian Abraham Pais wrote, "If I were to say a single sentence about Einstein's biography, I could say that he was the freest person I ever knew, and one sentence about his career, I could write that he was better than anyone." And that is all we wanted to share about Albert Einstein.